The protagonist of our story, as usual, is a superhero who traveled back in time to save the world from destruction. He had a few months before the catastrophe struck, which he spent training relentlessly and borrowing money to buy food and essential equipment for survival and defeating monsters. However, when the expected disaster was supposed to occur, nothing happened. Instead, he found himself deep in debt from purchasing useless equipment. To repay his debts, he was forced to work as a streamer, where he unexpectedly discovered how to make use of his past experience in fighting monsters. 20 years after the alien invasion of Earth, the final day of the war had arrived, and humanity prepared for its last battle. The only way to end the war was to eliminate the leader of the alien forces. For this reason, all the warriors were ready to give their all to defeat the creature. However, before they could launch their attack, it unleashed a massive burst of fire from its mouth, so powerful that it wiped out all life in that area. Among the warriors was a fighter named Lee Hyuk, who was filled with rage at what the alien leader had done. He wanted to attack it alone, but one of his comrades, named Kabona, stopped him from making a reckless move. When Lee Hyuk turned to Kabona, he saw that his hand had been severed due to the explosion. At that moment, he realized that defeating the creature was impossible with their current strength, and that there was only one way to bring it down. Then, a sorceress revealed a stone known as the Temporal Reversal Stone, a recently discovered artifact that allowed humanity to travel back in time. Kabona explained that only one person could use it. If there was to be a single person to return to the past, it had to be Lee Hyuk. His comrades looked at him with joy, telling him he was the hunter who appeared once in a century, the only one capable of fulfilling this mission, as the fate of 8 billion people rested in his hands. Lee Hyuk hesitated, clenching his teeth. He did not want to leave his friends behind, but there was no other choice, so he had no option but to agree. He then took the Temporal Reversal Stone and activated it, telling them he hoped to meet them again in another life, while they all smiled. The stone emitted a beam of light that pierced through Lee Hyuk's heart. The sorceress caught him and gently laid him on the ground, then looked at him and said she felt at peace now. Meanwhile, Kabona declared that he would have to face all challenges alone from now on, and that their role had come to an end. But the sorceress responded, saying that there was still one last task remaining. She then turned her gaze toward the alien leader, and stated that, at the very least, they had to fight it until the end. And so, the final battle between the hunters and the alien creatures began. After that, the scene shifted to Lee Hyuk, who had successfully traveled back in time, finding himself in his old room. A wave of happiness washed over him as he realized he had returned 7 months before the invasion. He was certain that, during this time, he had to train his body rigorously and gather the necessary equipment to fight the alien creatures. Without hesitation, he put on his jacket and stepped outside, saying there was no time to waste, as the fate of 8 billion people depended on him. He also knew he had to be fully prepared for the first sign of the invasion, and he would keep training until that moment arrived. 7 months later, Lee Hyuk stood before a mountain, stating that in a very short time, a portal would appear in this location. He acknowledged that his current physical condition was far weaker than it had been in the past, but at the very least, he had reached the minimum threshold to be considered awakened. Moving closer to the mountain, he noted that within 1 minute, the portal would open, releasing an enormous surge of mana energy. This energy would significantly enhance a human's physical abilities, forming a unique internal cycle that allowed them to generate more of it. However, he also pointed out the major problem, the alien creatures that would emerge from the portal as well. He recalled that the ones that first appeared in Korea had been giant ants and cockroaches, which, at their peak, were nothing more than insects easily eliminated. But now, even 5 or 6 awakened individuals would struggle to take down a single one. Nevertheless, with his experience, he assumed he would be able to handle them. The countdown to the monster's arrival began. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Lee Hyuk then rushed toward the mountain, only to be shocked when no portal appeared. Trying to calm himself, he reasoned that perhaps he had miscalculated the timing and had been a bit too eager, so he decided to wait a little longer. But as he continued to wait until nightfall, 10 hours passed, and he finally muttered in confusion that he no longer understood what had happened to the portal. Then, still clinging to hope, he told himself that he might have miscalculated the date, so he decided to return to the same spot the next day. However, that day stretched into a week, and passers-by began to observe his actions with curiosity. That week turned into a month, to the point where some people started visiting the location just to take pictures with him, dubbing him the legendary statue of this mountain. 6 months later, Lee Hyuk had become incredibly famous, even appearing on television, where people regarded him as a tourist attraction. This led to his mother and younger sister seeing him on TV. At that moment, Lee Hyuk realized that the world had remained in a strange state of peace, with no signs of alien creatures. Afterward, Lee Hyuk worked as a construction worker for 3 more months. He thought to himself that during the 10 years he had spent as a hunter, he had been given many titles, the last of which was the Savior. But now, he was nothing more than an ordinary construction worker among the masses, unable to bear the thought of facing his former comrades if they ever discovered his current situation. He then recalled how he had waited 6 whole months, hoping for the portal to appear, yet nothing had happened. No alien creatures, no awakened, and no supernatural occurrences in this world. Feeling dejected, he finally came to accept the truth that this Earth was different from the one he had lived in. While the theory of multiple universes was widely discussed, he had never imagined it could actually be real. He wondered if the absence of a portal collapse meant that the inhabitants of this world were simply extremely fortunate. Then, feeling at ease, he told himself that he should embrace the peace of this world and forget the wars and battles of his past. But just as he began to enjoy this tranquility, his phone rang. It was a notification from the bank regarding the debts he had to repay. The moment he saw the amount due, all his dreams of peace shattered instantly. When he returned home, his younger sister Jian scolded him, demanding to know what he had been doing all this time. She pointed out that instead of working, he had spent an entire year purchasing gas masks and strange equipment, storing them in the basement. Grabbing him by the arm, she reminded him that a year ago, he had claimed the world was going to end and had spent a fortune on those things, to the point where their mother had grown worried about him. Internally, Lee Hyuk, on the verge of tears, admitted to himself that even he hadn't known the world wouldn't come to an end. He had made this decision based on the plan he had devised with Cabona, to borrow money from every possible source to prepare for the portal collapses and the arrival of the alien creatures. But then he remembered how he had once asked Cabona what they would do after accumulating all that debt. Cabona had replied that by then, the world would be in ruins, and no one would care about what happened afterward. Now, having followed the plan to the letter, Lee Hyuk found himself in a situation where the world had not collapsed as expected, and he had no way to simply return the borrowed money. At that moment, his sister told him that she knew he had been working as a laborer to pay off his mounting debts, and then offered to help him through her live streaming channel, on the condition that he assisted her in return. He asked if she was referring to that strange device she wore on her head while gaming. She confirmed it, explaining that the game required 2 players, and she needed his help. He told her he had never played such a game before, but she assured him that he had always been good at sports and similar games, and she was confident he would adapt quickly. Besides, he was the only person she could rely on for this task. Lee Hyuk agreed to her offer and asked how much she earned from online gaming. She replied, 15 million. Hearing the number, he was utterly shocked. She then clarified that she earned 15 million won per month, and that if he helped her, she would give him half of her earnings. Without hesitation, Lee Hyuk accepted the offer, put on the gaming equipment, and thus, the once savior of humanity, had now become his sister's servant in exchange for money. Jian excitedly announces that they are about to begin. As soon as they land in the game, they find themselves on a slope, but Lee Hyuk manages to grab hold of her, allowing them to descend safely. The game revolves around battling monsters, where players level up by defeating more of them. It is considered one of the most difficult games, earning the nickname, the Beginner's Graveyard. Upon reaching the haunted house, Jian clutches Lee Hyuk's hand and asks him to stay close. Meanwhile, Lee Hyuk thinks to himself that this house is nowhere near as terrifying as the things he has seen in the past, whereas Jian is the complete opposite, visibly terrified. Lee Hyuk then assures her that they will move cautiously as she wishes, while viewers watch in amazement, impressed by his fearless attitude as he enters the haunted house. When they reach the door, a message appears, prompting Jian to hide behind Lee Hyuk and ask him what it says. However, he ignores the message and moves past it. Jian grabs him by the hair, exclaiming that he must have lost his mind. This game is already difficult, yet he even skipped the tutorial. He apologizes, explaining that the message popped up suddenly, and he closed it without thinking. Jian tries to keep her composure and mutters that it was her mistake for trusting a beginner. She then turns to her viewers, asking for any guidance since she hadn't read the game's manual. The viewers respond, telling her that the first thing they need to do is search for weapons. They warn that the weapons they find won't be strong enough to kill the boss, so when they encounter it, they should run away immediately. Just then, Lee Hyuk hears the sound of options appearing. Jian quickly rushes toward him, asking how he also managed to select the real mode option, then starts crying, wondering why things like this always happen to her. Lee Hyuk tries to defend himself, explaining that he only touched the doorknob to check if it was unlocked. One of the viewers informs them that if they manage to complete the game at this difficulty level, they will earn 1 million won, but they only have 3 attempts. Another viewer offers 500,000 won if they finish it without any limit on retries. Hearing these numbers, Lee Hyuk and Jian suddenly become serious. He tells her that they have no choice now. They must finish the mission no matter what. Without hesitation, Lee Hyuk opens the door to the house. The first thing they see inside is the body of a man hanging upside down from the ceiling. The moment Jian lays eyes on it, she screams and clings tightly to Lee Hyuk. The viewers laugh at her reaction and inform them that they might find a gun and an axe on the corpse. As expected, Lee Hyuk discovers the weapons and hands the gun to Jian, but she tells him that she isn't good at using firearms. He then asks if she's skilled with an axe, pointing out that she would have to get very close to the monsters to strike them. She responds that she had always dreamed of wielding guns in battle. However, before she can finish her sentence, they are suddenly ambushed by a horde of monsters. Jian panics and starts screaming, but as she watches Lee Hyuk fight, she realizes he is attacking the monsters as well. The viewers are astonished by his combat skills. He effortlessly severs the arm of one of the creatures. He then grabs the severed arm and shoves it into the monster's mouth, killing it instantly. The viewers are left in disbelief at how quickly he managed to take it down on his own. The moment he slays the monster, even more creatures emerge to attack him. Yet he shows no signs of fear. He charges straight into battle. He cuts through them at an incredible speed, so fast that the viewers struggle to keep up with what's happening. They comment that they have never seen anyone execute such moves before. After finishing off the monsters, Lee Hyuk turns to Jian and tells her that she must have been terrified. However, before he can get any closer to her, she suddenly shoots him in the head. Lee Hyuk dies instantly. Jean rushes toward him, shouting that she didn't mean to do it. The mission fails because one of them has died. The scene shifts to a large building, where a streamer specializing in horror games is seen screaming in frustration, as the best he can do is kill only 2 monsters. While Lee Hyuk manages to slay 4 using just an axe, the streamer then starts searching for Lee Hyuk, wanting to know his name. We return to Lee Hyuk and Jian, who have re-entered the game after Jian accidentally killed him. She tries to apologize, seeing that he looks extremely annoyed. However, he responds, saying that he has calmed down now and that it was his fault from the start. He explains that he made the mistake of letting an idiot like her wield a gun. Jian apologizes again, promising she won't do it again. But he walks away, telling her there won't be a next time and instructing her to follow him since he'll be moving quickly. She appears upset and says she wants to see how he'll handle things without her help. Yet, once again, Lee Hyuk swiftly eliminates all the monsters. He even carries Jian along with him. He then tells the viewers that when Jian didn't move, he was able to kill the monsters even faster. He turns to Jian and says that he has now proven he can handle the monsters alone, which is why they will be dividing their roles from now on. However, Jian doesn't understand what he means by dividing roles. He explains that he will be responsible for weapons, combat, material gathering, and exploration. She then asks what her role will be, especially since he's doing almost everything. He bluntly replies that her only job is to stay quiet and support him. Jean doesn't like this answer and insists that this is her game too. She can't just sit on the sidelines and cheer him on, but he ignores her and heads inside. As soon as he opens the door and steps in, he is confronted by a massive monster, the boss of this room. The moment Jian sees it, she panics and pushes Lee Hyuk toward the creature. Lee Hyuk yells at her, demanding to know what kind of foolish move that was, while the viewers burst into laughter, convinced that they are about to lose again. But at the last second, Lee Hyuk dodges the boss's attack and slides across the ground. He then strikes the monster's leg, causing it to collapse. The moment the boss falls, Lee Hyuk swiftly jumps onto its back. While striking with his axe, he mutters that a monster like this is nothing compared to the ones he used to fight in the past. However, he quickly realizes that the boss's skin is incredibly tough, making it difficult for the axe to penetrate. The viewers comment that no one can pierce the boss's skin with an axe like that, which is why beginners usually run away when facing it. Frustrated, Lee Hyuk shouts that if his axe attack won't work, he has no other choice. He then stomps down on the axe with full force, driving it deeper into the boss's body. With sheer brute strength, he manages to break through its tough hide. The viewers, including Jian, are stunned. They never expected him to defeat the boss in such a way. However, Lee Hyuk simply questions why they are so surprised, insisting that the boss was never difficult to begin with. The viewers respond by telling him that this boss is usually only defeated by professional players after gathering enough weapons, and even then, it remains a tough challenge. They then accuse Jian of deceiving them, claiming that her brother is actually a pro. She yells in protest, insisting that her brother is just a beginner who has never played a game like this before. She then asks Lee Hyuk to open his stats window so they can verify her claim. When he does, it reveals that he has only played for 6 hours, but the viewers completely ignore the playtime when they see his stats. 134, an incredibly high number, considering the highest recorded in history, is 147. Upon checking the details, they discover that he ranks in the top 100% across all attributes. Lee Hyuk, now visibly pleased, declares that he is finally reaping the rewards of his long years of training for the end of the world. Meanwhile, Jian looks at him with pity, wondering what kind of people he must have trained with to become like this. She then approaches him and asks if they at least allowed him to eat decent meals. Lee Hyuk looks at her in confusion, but she continues speaking, now in a sorrowful tone, saying that from now on, she will always treat him kindly. Shortly after, the two receive a donation of 10,000 won from a viewer named Black Orc, the first player to have ever unlocked the secret route in the game. Lee Hyuk asks them what they mean by the secret route. They explain that this path only opens after defeating the boss, as most players in the normal storyline fail to do so. They add that Black Orc was the first person to succeed after 7 attempts, during which he tried every type of weapon in the game. Lee Hyuk remarks that 7 attempts seem like a lot, adding that not everyone is skilled at games, which is why it took him so long. This statement deeply offends Black Orc, as he is supposed to be a professional player. Black Orc then adds that he cannot believe someone who has never played this type of game before managed to defeat the boss using only an axe. He admits that he had planned to stop watching soon, but after seeing this, he changed his mind. He then sends another 10,000 won and tells Lee Hyuk that he has a mission for him. Jian immediately asks about the mission's details. He explains that the challenge is for Lee Hyuk to complete the game using only an axe. If he succeeds, he will receive 1 million won. The moment Jian hears this number, she jumps in excitement, and Lee Hyuk agrees to the challenge. The viewers comment that this mission will be incredibly difficult due to the sheer variety of monsters in the game. Black Orc, believing the challenge to be impossible, suggests that Lee Hyuk use a chainsaw or a bow instead of the axe. However, Lee Hyuk accidentally presses the button to accept the challenge, which infuriates Jian. Now, they are forced to complete the game using only the axe, no matter what. He tries to explain that he did not mean to accept it. Lee Hyuk then takes Jian along and quickly begins attacking the monsters, reassuring her that he will complete the mission. Eventually, they reach Egrand, the second boss in the game, known for his incredible speed. While watching, Black Orc comments that the chainsaw Egrand wields is extremely powerful and that his attack patterns are highly complex. He explains that the proper strategy to defeat him requires one player to distract him with a firearm while the other targets his weak points. According to him, this is the only viable way to win, and both players must participate in combat. Back in the game, Lee Hyuk delivers a powerful strike to Egrand's leg. Egrand screams in pain. Lee Hyuk then mocks Black Orc's previous statement, saying that in his time, if they didn't have weapons, they fought with their bare hands. If no path existed, they would carve one for themselves. Furthermore, he was the best monster hunter. He dismisses the official strategy Black Orc mentioned, saying that nothing compares to his 20 years of real-life experience. He considers those strategies mere jokes. He then states that if the enemy relies on speed, the solution is simple: destroy the source of that speed. He then delivers another powerful strike to Egrand's leg. Next, he kicks Egrand's leg, asserting that disrupting an opponent's balance and speed paves the way for the final step, targeting the neck. He explains that for humanoid monsters, this is their weak point. With incredible speed, he dashes toward Egrand. He then swings his axe with a powerful blow. However, Egrand blocks the attack with his arm, causing the axe to embed itself in his flesh. Egrand then launches a rapid counterattack with his chainsaw. Jian panics, fearing that her brother is about to be killed. But at the last second, Lee Hyuk dodges the attack. He then leaps onto Egrand's arm, the one holding the chainsaw, and bends the weapon with immense force. Sensing danger, Egrand instinctively tries to shield his head with his other hand. However, with a sharp gaze, Lee Hyuk states that if an opponent's defense is strong, then he simply needs to attack even harder. He then uses the bent chainsaw under his foot as leverage to propel himself forward at an even greater speed. Moving at an incredible pace, he delivers a decisive blow, slicing off Egrand's head in a single strike. After the battle, he casually remarks that there was some trickery involved in this fight. Jian then runs toward him in excitement, exclaiming that they successfully defeated the boss. Black Orc sends a sum of money to Lee Hyuk and then asks him to explain how he defeated Egrand. Lee Hyuk responds that it was much simpler than they might imagine. He explains that he analyzed the direction and speed of Egrand's leg movements, then targeted the leg that remained stationary during attacks, significantly reducing his speed. Additionally, he observed the movement of Egrand's shoulder and hand, allowing him to predict the nature of the next attack. Afterward, he dodged the incoming strike and delivered an extremely powerful blow. The viewers express their admiration for what he did, commenting that it was incredible, but he simply replies that it was actually quite easy. They then ask if he can dodge bullets in the same way. He responds that avoiding bullets is even easier since they move in a straight line. He can evade them just by observing the direction of the gun barrel, or even deflect them using his axe. The viewers tell him that there is no need to explain because he is probably the only one capable of doing something like that. Just then, Jian calls out to him, informing him that there is a path leading downward. They begin descending the stairs, and Jian tells him that she has found another axe for him. When Lee Hyuk takes the axe from her, he comments that it reminds him of the days when he used such weapons to defeat countless monsters. But Jian quickly warns him that there are monsters behind him. As he turns around, he sees a massive horde of zombies. However, he is completely unfazed by their numbers. He proceeds to decapitate them one by one, astonishing the viewers, who cannot believe these are actually enhanced zombies, especially given how effortlessly Lee Hyuk is taking them down. He explains to them that it is not difficult at all, as he simply dodges their attacks first, then focuses his strength to strike at their weak points, their necks. However, the viewers are surprised by the difficulty level of this stage, pointing out that there were only supposed to be 10 zombies, not this overwhelming number. Lee Hyuk comments that he will just have to put in a little extra effort to take them all down. He then begins spinning at an incredible speed, allowing him to cut down a large number of them in one motion. However, this tactic has a major drawback. It leaves him extremely dizzy. After finishing off the zombies, Jian approaches him and tells him that she has found a document detailing the cure that could end the crisis that turned humans into zombies. She opens the notebook but struggles to read it due to the bloodstains covering the pages. However, she manages to decipher part of it, which states that the outbreak was caused by a mutated strain. It also mentions that the antidote is inside the car that was parked at the entrance before they entered the haunted house. All they need to do is retrieve the antidote, spread it inside the house, and once dispersed, it will significantly weaken all the zombies. Lee Hyuk responds that it does not sound complicated, and that they might as well give it a try. But Jian seems uneasy, fearing that they could lose everything they have accomplished so far. However, he reassures her, saying that they would have had to fight these zombies regardless. Before they can move, Black Orc sends them another 10,000 won, and challenges them to defeat the next boss without using the antidote. Realizing that money is on the line, both Lee Hyuk and Jian immediately agree. Upon reaching the lowest level of the building, they find that the floor is cracked. Lee Hyuk tells Jian that they probably need to jump through the gap. He then carries her on his back and leaps into the hole. They land in the underground area. The moment they arrive, an unbearable stench fills the air. Lee Hyuk comments that it brings back memories of when he used to hide in the sewers to escape from alien creatures. A sewer rat suddenly appears, causing Jian to panic. Meanwhile, Lee Hyuk, in contrast, is overjoyed. He remarks that if he uses it to make soup, it will taste amazing. However, they are soon swarmed by an army of giant rats, escalating Jian's fear. Lee Hyuk, on the other hand, faces them with pure excitement. He slaughters them one after another, delighted at the idea that he will be able to eat their meat. Just as he prepares to take a bite, Jian screams at him, insisting that he must have lost his mind if he is seriously considering eating rat meat. But he ignores her, and just as he is about to take a bite, a monstrous creature appears and smacks the piece of meat out of his hand. Two monsters appear, both are game bosses, but the viewers are surprised by their presence, as they are not supposed to be the bosses for this stage. Jian panics and urges Lee Hyuk to run, as they are now facing two bosses simultaneously instead of just one. However, Lee Hyuk is still mourning the loss of his piece of meat and shows no concern for the monster's presence. He then looks at them with tears in his eyes, wondering how they dared to ruin his meal. Thus, the battle against the two bosses begins, while Jian comments that there must be an error in the game, causing two bosses to appear at this stage. But Black Orc explains that in real mode, the difficulty level is adjusted based on the player's strength, and since Lee Hyuk's stats have surpassed normal limits, the challenge has significantly increased. Back to Lee Hyuk, one of the monsters lands a hit on him, sending him crashing into the wall. The viewers comment that fighting two of these creatures at once is extremely difficult, even for someone as strong as Lee Hyuk. However, he reassures them that he is fine and fully capable of handling them. He then attacks again, tearing through their bodies while remarking that things are finally getting interesting. However, the monsters possess an incredible regeneration ability. Additionally, one of them emits a toxic gas from its mouth. Jian warns him that they will be poisoned and have only 10 minutes before they die. This makes the situation extremely difficult. Not only does Lee Hyuk have to deal with their rapid regeneration, but also the toxic gas they are spreading. Lee Hyuk declares that if these monsters can regenerate, he will keep tearing them apart until they completely lose that ability. However, even after he decapitates them, they regenerate once again. Jean screams in terror as she watches their bodies return to their original state, and one of them lunges at her. Meanwhile, the other monster charges at Lee Hyuk. Lee Hyuk considers that their weak point might be their hearts. He then severs one of the monster's arms to get closer to it. He delivers a powerful blow to its face, knocking it to the ground. He then slashes its chest open, attempting to extract its heart. But before he can retrieve it, the other monster attacks him. Jian screams to warn him. Lee Hyuk dodges the attack just in time, but the monster ends up killing its own companion by mistake. Lee Hyuk then leaps onto the remaining monster and lands a direct hit on its head. The strike is so powerful that his axe slices it in half. Jian is in complete disbelief that her brother managed to defeat both monsters on his own. She then turns to the viewers, declaring that after such an amazing performance, they should send donations for the show. Sure enough, they receive an overwhelming amount of donations. Lee Hyuk stands in shock, unable to believe how much money they earned in just one day. Jean then asks him what he wants to do next and whether he plans to continue playing. He replies that they have been playing for 8 hours, which is more than enough, and that they will continue tomorrow. The viewers express their disappointment, complaining that 8 hours is too short, but Lee Hyuk explains that his concentration is starting to wane, and besides, this is his first time using a virtual reality device. He then assures them that next time, he will continue the game before saying his goodbyes. Black Orc comments that Lee Hyuk's skills are truly incredible, and he cannot imagine how he would perform in other games if this is his level in a game like this. With a challenging look in his eyes, he states that Lee Hyuk should not hesitate, as the viewers want to see him challenge him in a match. The scene then shifts to Lee Hyuk's home, where Jian looks extremely happy and asks him how he managed to develop such incredible skills. She then tries to imitate him, remarking that he seemed like someone who had spent his entire life using an axe. However, he yells at her to stop, warning that she might hurt him. She then speaks to him seriously, asking how he was able to do all of that, pointing out that he looked like a madman, slaughtering everything in his path. He simply responds that he just did it. Jian replies that he is extremely lucky to have such a talent. She then starts thinking about it, noting that he had always been an athletic person since childhood. Jean recalls the words of the fortune teller who once told them, when they were children, that Lee Hyuk was destined to save the world. This shocked both him and his family, who dismissed the woman as nothing more than a crazy old lady. Additionally, his coach had once tried to convince his parents that Lee Hyuk was not suited for academics, and that his future lay in combat and martial arts. However, his parents completely rejected this idea, insisting that he would grow up to become a secretary general instead. Jian continues, saying that if their parents had listened to the coach back then, Lee Hyuk would have won at least 1 or 2 Olympic medals. She adds that they regret their decision every single day. She then suggests that since he is so skilled at gaming, he should try live streaming as well. Lee Hyuk is surprised by her suggestion and asks if she means he should stream by himself. She confirms, reminding him that he saw firsthand how the viewers reacted today. If he opens a stream and continues playing the way he did earlier, he will be able to build a massive fan base. Lee Hyuk starts seriously considering her words. He reflects on how, before returning to this world, he fought monsters daily for 10 years. Had he failed to kill every creature he encountered, he would have died. But now, after returning to this peaceful world, all he has done is work as a construction laborer, making his life unbearably dull. The battles he fought in virtual reality were the most exciting thing he had done since his return. He then expresses his happiness, saying that he genuinely enjoyed playing the game. Jian's eyes light up with excitement, and she asks if he has finally decided to start streaming. However, he tells her that he still has debts to pay off, so he needs some time to think about it. This frustrates Jian, and she tells him that his debt is the very reason he should start streaming in the first place. She explains that, thanks to the challenge from Black Orc, they managed to earn 3 million won in a single day. Lee Hyuk is stunned by the number and realizes that he could clear his debts in no time. Jian then sits on the couch and tells him that he is missing one crucial thing, the equipment needed for streaming. In response, he brings her food and asks if she would lend him the money to buy it. She agrees and tells him she will cover the cost of the equipment. Overjoyed, Lee Hyuk exclaims that she is the best sister in the world. Just as she is about to transfer the money for the purchase, she receives a message. She is shocked upon seeing the sender's name, which worries Lee Hyuk. He asks her what's wrong. She informs him that Black Orc has sent her a message, proposing a collaboration with Lee Hyuk in the game. She tells him this is amazing, as Black Orc is one of the most famous streamers of all time. However, Lee Hyuk immediately refuses the idea. Jean clings to him, insisting that he doesn't understand how popular Black Orc is. She explains that even a single collaboration with him would bring in an enormous number of viewers, but Lee Hyuk scoffs, sarcastically asking how she expects him to cooperate with a boy just because he bought the equipment. He adds that he has no interest in boys. He then accuses her of being so obsessed with views that she is trying to force him into it. This infuriates Jian, who snaps and declares that she should just kill him and be done with it. The next day, a delivery company arrives, and workers install the new equipment in Lee Hyuk's room. The scene shifts to Lee Hyuk, who appears to have been severely beaten. He complains that it's Jian's fault. She should have explained what she meant by collaboration, because his mind had gone in a completely different direction. He then enters his room and shuts the door, declaring that since he has decided to play, he must start now. As he logs into the system, he notes that he has added another expense to his debt. The streaming equipment cost him 20 million won. He then reflects on how he and Jian have been fighting since they were kids. However, she has a kind heart. That is why he will do his best in gaming, to pay off his debts and buy her plenty of gifts. Lee Hyuk powers on his device and announces that this time, he wants to play in game mode instead of real-life mode. He then expresses his desire to choose a game that makes up for the shortcomings he experienced in The Haunted House. After searching for a while, he finds a game that piques his interest and decides to try it. However, it turns out to be quite expensive. Since he doesn't have the money at the moment, he is forced to settle for the cheapest available option. Eventually, he finds a fighting game similar to the ones he used to play in his childhood. Its price is extremely low, so he purchases it immediately. Excited, he enters the game. He immediately begins examining his in-game body statistics. To his surprise, his strike is powerful enough to shatter the ground. Additionally, his movements are incredibly fast. After testing his abilities, he finds them somewhat lacking, commenting that they are not enough to make him truly superhuman. However, he is certain that his capabilities far exceed those of a normal human. His speed has increased to the point that no one should be able to track his movements. He then declares that he is ready to enter matches. However, he receives a notification stating that his level is still too low to join ranked battles, and that he must start with beginner challenges first. He begins searching for a match and selects the character Lee Hyuk to begin his fight. The scene shifts to a duelist known as Princess of the Sword, who swiftly defeats her opponent. She wins the match with a single strike. With that, she completes her challenge and earns her monetary reward from her viewers. She then announces that she is looking for another match since she has free time. The AI begins searching for a suitable opponent, but informs her that she will have to wait 9 minutes before finding a match at her level. Annoyed, she expresses her frustration at the long wait. She comments that it will cause her current viewer count to drop. One of her viewers then suggests that she join an unranked match instead. Excited by the idea, she agrees, reasoning that waiting too long would be a waste anyway. A challenge is then presented to her, requiring her to win 5 consecutive matches. She remarks that this might be somewhat difficult, and tries to negotiate for fewer required victories. She explains that her concern about failing the challenge is due to the lengthy duration of ranked matches. This is why professional players often switch to casual matches, to enjoy easily defeating beginners. Some viewers mock her, pointing out that she lost her previous match. Annoyed, she clarifies that her loss was not due to her own weakness. She explains that she had not been using her main character, while her opponent had been playing with their primary character. She then switches to the character she is most skilled with. Confidently, she declares that she will now show them how true professionals play. Princess of the Sword then sets up a one-on-one duel arena, choosing a volcanic battlefield. Her opponent is a character named Hawken, played by a platinum-ranked player. She comments that this character is easy to defeat but possesses effective and user-friendly moves. This makes him one of the top 3 most used characters in the game. Hawken attacks first, specializing in martial arts combat. However, she effortlessly dodges his strikes. She steps back, acknowledging that martial artists have superior control in close combat. However, she relies on magic, which means she must maintain a distance while fighting. At that moment, she quickly casts a long-range spell. It is a light-based incantation that temporarily blinds Hawken. She then throws her magic staff directly at his head. Shocked, he clutches his nose, which begins to bleed, and complains that what she did was not magic at all. However, before he can react further, she suddenly closes the distance and grabs his arm. She tells him that what she just did was actually the strongest kind of magic. She then flips him onto his back using her powerful physical magic. She picks up her magic staff once again, telling him that extraordinary physical magic is nothing more than a distraction tactic, as real magic takes time to activate. Then, she summons a massive fireball, her face twisting into a sinister expression that fills Hawken with fear, prompting him to mutter, "Oh, the most merciful, the most compassionate." He then addresses her while attempting to flee, calling her a ruthless person, but she pays no heed, bidding him farewell with sheer delight. Moments later, a tremendous explosion engulfs the entire battlefield, while the spectators revel in watching her bully novice players. She then declares her satisfaction at facing an opponent who wasn't particularly challenging, before continuing to play in pursuit of her goal, winning 5 consecutive matches. Afterward, the second challenger steps into the arena, selecting a character named Steve, though the player controlling it is Lee Hyuk. He gradually moves toward the Sword Princess, while the spectators laugh at him as he begins striking the battlefield's ground in an odd manner. He then walks toward the lava, staring at it in contemplation, which causes the Sword Princess to feel a pang of guilt. She is about to defeat someone who has just entered the game moments ago. However, the spectators remind her that bullying him is unacceptable, prompting her to burst into an evil laugh, admitting that she had wanted to, but she must finish her mission. She hadn't expected her opponent to be a complete beginner. Then, with great enthusiasm, she announces the start of the match. Meanwhile, the spectators express their astonishment, commenting that they haven't seen a new player in a long time, and predicting that he might delete the game immediately after what is about to happen. As the countdown ends, Lee Hyuk charges at an incredible speed, but the Sword Princess dodges his attack, informing him that such a strike won't work against her since she can even evade Hawken's fire attacks. However, Lee Hyuk had not yet completed his move. He adjusts his body's position using his hand planted on the ground, then swiftly closes the distance between them, catching her off guard. She is so stunned that she fails to react in time. He then unleashes a relentless flurry of punches, effortlessly defeating her without any resistance. The spectators are left in utter shock, having just witnessed a novice player take down a seasoned professional without sustaining a single hit. At that moment, the Sword Princess decides to challenge him again, leaving the spectators in disbelief as they sarcastically remark that instead of achieving 5 consecutive wins, she might end up suffering 5 consecutive defeats. Yet, she responds confidently, insisting on a rematch. She explains that her loss in the previous match was due to underestimating him, which led her to lower her defenses. She then adds that it is impossible for Lee Hyuk to be a mere beginner. He must have created a new account just like she did to compete against newcomers. Determined, she decides to switch to her main character, declaring that this time, she will win without taking a single hit. However, the spectators refuse to let her be, mocking her for reverting to her main character after just one loss. Annoyed by their comments, the Sword Princess insists that if she plays seriously, she will undoubtedly defeat him. She then draws her sword, proclaiming that she will no longer hold back, urging them to watch what happens next. With unwavering determination, she declares that from this moment on, she will showcase all of her skills. She then turns to Lee Hyuk, stating that he isn't a high-ranked player. Perhaps he belongs to the diamond tier or something close to it. She also remarks that his playstyle doesn't resemble that of players in this game, leading her to believe that he might be a professional in another game who recently decided to give this one a try. This time, she takes the initiative, assuring him that she will show him how true professionals play. She then attacks him with her sword, but he swiftly dodges by dropping low. He then prepares to strike again with his hand. However, the Sword Princess anticipates his move, declaring that she will not allow him to defeat her again. Just as she was about to strike him with her sword, he grabbed her hand before the blade could reach him, then delivered a direct punch to her face, just as he had done the first time. The same scene played out again as he continued to strike her, ultimately securing victory in the same manner as in the first match, without taking a single hit. The Sword Princess could not accept such a humiliating defeat, and demanded another rematch, only to be defeated once more after he struck her again. With that, Lee Hyuk had won 5 consecutive matches. He then commented that the first character she had used was remarkably easy to defeat, whereas the second one posed more of a challenge due to her swordplay. He added that he had wanted to test the game's supernatural abilities, but he had skipped the tutorial, which prevented him from using them. Even when he attempted to rely on his old magical senses, he found himself unable to activate them. He explained that he had specifically chosen this game to regain his lost abilities, and realized that he would need to go through the tutorial next time. Just then, he was surprised to see the Sword Princess returning to him once again. Delighted by her reappearance, he praised her for playing well and asked about her ranking. However, he quickly noticed that she was extremely angry and could not understand what she was saying. He asked her to repeat herself, telling her that he could not hear a word of what she was saying. He wondered if the game had automatically disabled voice chat during matches to help players focus on combat. In that case, she wouldn't be able to hear anything he said either. However, he soon noticed a flood of messages arriving. All of them were requests for rematches driven by revenge. He apologized to the Sword Princess, informing her that he had to leave now, silently noting to himself that he needed to log out and find a way to reactivate his supernatural abilities. Yet, he saw that the Sword Princess was still shouting furiously. Trying to guess what she was saying by reading her lips, he assumed she was asking for his name so she could challenge him again later. Standing confidently, he told her his name exactly as it was. This revelation left both the Sword Princess and the spectators in shock. As for Lee Hyuk, he wondered to himself if they simply couldn't hear him, just like before. The Sword Princess grew even angrier and hurled insults at him, vowing that she would never leave him alone until she reclaimed her honor. She then screamed loudly, while the spectators burst into laughter at her frustration, expressing her annoyance at his audacity in ignoring her like that. One of the spectators explained that it wasn't intentional. His account was new, and the game's default setting had voice chat muted, which was why he had been unable to hear her from the start. However, the Sword Princess refused to believe them, insisting that it was impossible. She had attacked him with everything she had, yet that so-called beginner had effortlessly dodged all her moves and defeated her mid-attack. There was no way a beginner could accomplish such a feat in their very first match. She was convinced that this player had to be a professional and had deliberately targeted her. At that point, the spectators speculated that he might actually be a current pro player concealing his identity, perhaps even Anatoly himself, leaving the Sword Princess utterly stunned. Anatoly was a legendary figure in this game, someone no one had ever been able to defeat, she then remarked, stating that Anatoly's playstyle was defined by its perfection, whereas this player's combat pattern was entirely unreadable. It was as if he fought without any fixed offensive strategy. If her intuition was correct, it meant that he had predicted every move she made and countered it instantly. She added that such a thing was completely impossible in the world of gaming. There was no way a player with such monstrous instincts could be real. Then, she recalled their brief exchange when she had approached him again. He had praised her performance, and then asked about her ranking. She wondered how he could have fought her without knowing her ranking when he could have easily assessed her level through their match. However, the spectators continued to mock her, recalling the humiliation she had just suffered, further fueling her frustration. Enraged, she screamed at them, demanding that they stay silent. We shift to Lee Hyuk after several hours of gameplay, as he had just returned from another match. He then comments that this marks his 14th victory before checking his ranking. To his surprise, he has now reached the diamond rank, adding that every opponent he has faced so far has been defeated in just 1 or 2 strikes. He also notes that there are 2 higher ranks above him, and assumes that once he reaches the highest level, he will undoubtedly encounter more skilled players. He then recalls the Sword Princess, acknowledging that her skill level was quite decent, and decides to add her to his friends list, just in case something happens, wondering whether she would accept his request or not. Just then, he receives a notification that Jian wants to play the haunted house game with him, reminding him of their agreement to continue the game together at this time. He accepts her request, transitioning into the game alongside her. Jean then greets her viewers, prompting one of them to ask if the boy next to her is the lunatic who wields the twin axes. She confirms this, pointing out that just by looking at his expression, one can tell it's him. He has the face of a madman. This irritates Lee Hyuk, who asks her what she means by that. She then explains that this has been his nickname since the last session, the Axe Maniac, and that he has gained significant fame across all streaming platforms. She then enthusiastically informs her viewers that they are about to start a live stream, with the Axe Maniac, Lee Hyuk, being part of this adventure. Jean then asks her viewers if they remember where they left off last time, and of course they do. She continues by saying that they will pick up exactly where they left off. She then turns to Lee Hyuk and urges him to begin. However, he surprises her by grabbing his axe, appearing as if he is about to strike her. Alarmed, she tries to calm him down and asks why he would do such a thing. But she quickly realizes that he wasn't aiming at her. He had thrown his axe behind her. When she turns around, she discovers that the axe had struck a monster. Moments later, a horde of monsters appears, shocking the viewers due to their overwhelming numbers, especially since they weren't supposed to spawn in this area. However, this makes no difference to Lee Hyuk, who immediately launches an attack. As one of the monsters lunges at him, he swiftly grabs its face, effortlessly ripping its head from its body. He is then attacked from behind but manages to dodge just in time. He follows up by decapitating the monster with his axe. However, the relentless creatures give him no chance to rest, as another one charges at him while he is still on the ground. Reacting quickly, he smashes it with the severed head of the previous monster, striking its head and sending it crashing to the ground. Lee Hyuk then resumes his rampage against the monsters, until he notices something he hadn't paid attention to before. In the distance, there is a monster issuing commands to the others. Wasting no time, he dashes toward it at lightning speed, delivering a powerful blow with his axe, instantly severing its head. He then retrieves the other axe he had thrown earlier, declaring that it's time to finish these monsters quickly. At that moment, a group of them charges at him all at once, along with another one attacking from behind. Instead of feeling overwhelmed, Lee Hyuk becomes exhilarated, stating that now he can finally continue from where they left off last time. He then begins slaughtering the creatures, decapitating them with incredible speed, using his signature spinning attack to eliminate them efficiently. However, this technique leaves him feeling extremely dizzy. The viewers comment that he is still suffering from the after effects of this skill, to which Lee Hyuk responds that he is handling it much better than before. He then surveys the area to check if any monsters are still alive. After examining them, he realizes that they are all dead, and informs the viewers that they should learn from this battle, specifically, how he was able to take them down so quickly by targeting their weak points. He points out how easily they were killed, to which the viewers respond by explaining that it was because he had decapitated them. These monsters are known for their extreme resilience, so much so that even bombs are incapable of taking them down. Lee Hyuk responds to them, saying that their words imply that these monsters were designed to be defeated using melee weapons rather than firearms, which is why he was able to kill them so effortlessly. The viewers reply that none of them could fight this way or eliminate monsters as easily as he does. He then explains that their attack patterns are extremely simple. These creatures only attack in straight lines, making their movements easy to predict. By anticipating their strikes, he can easily dodge and immediately decapitate them. Jian ponders to herself, thinking that no ordinary human could do what he does, and wonders what caused him to change so drastically. Meanwhile, Lee Hyuk continues explaining his strategy to the viewers, but Jian secretly considers him a genius, one who cannot grasp the struggles of regular players. However, she doesn't mind as long as the stream continues smoothly. She then gently nudges Lee Hyuk, urging him to stop explaining and move forward to the next stage. The scene then shifts to the Sword Princess, who is engaged in a fierce battle, attacking her opponent with her sword. However, he manages to block her strike, deflecting her blade with a counterattack. He then follows up with an offensive move that nearly hits her, but she pulls back at the last moment, narrowly avoiding the attack. While still airborne, she taunts him, telling him that he might be the one to die instead of her. She then unleashes a relentless barrage of strikes, leaving him with no chance to escape. This allows her to secure victory over him. After the battle, she comments that her opponent was somewhat exhausting to deal with, but she reflects internally, realizing that the person she just defeated belonged to one of the higher ranks. Yet, he was unable to evade her dance of death technique. She then grips her hand in frustration, wondering why that very same skill had been completely ineffective against Lee Hyuk. A sense of confusion overwhelms her, as she still doesn't know who he truly is, whether he is a professional in this game or an expert from another one. However, she is certain of one thing: he is one of the best competitors in the world, and might be the only one capable of challenging Anatoly, the best player in this game. She then smiles with excitement, concluding that he must have challenged her out of curiosity about her abilities. Just then, she receives a notification of a new friend request. She asks the viewers to wait a moment while she checks the sender's identity. However, upon seeing the name, she is utterly shocked. Her expression shifts to deep frustration as she realizes that the request came from Lee Hyuk. She assumes that he changed his name to exactly like this, just to mock her. The scene then returns to Lee Hyuk and Jian, who have arrived at the boss room. Jian approaches a specific stone, explaining that this time, she has read all the instructions. By pressing it, the iron gate will open. As expected, the gate unlocks, and the two of them ascend the staircase. As they climb, Jian informs Lee Hyuk that once they reach the top, they will be met with iron bars, and beyond them, they will see a massive horde of zombies, along with the final gatekeeper who protects the game's ultimate boss. However, the viewers sense that something is off, as they do not see the gatekeeper who is supposed to be at the center of the zombies. Instead, they notice that the figure in the middle is nothing more than an old zombie woman sitting in a wheelchair. Upon seeing her, Jian screams loudly, and it appears that the viewers are equally stunned by the sight. Lee Hyuk then comments that, judging by Jian's and the viewers' reactions, it's clear that this old woman is the leader of the monsters, and is likely the first person to have been infected. This would explain her ability to control an army of zombies. He then adds that he feels like he has seen someone similar to this old woman before. Lee Hyuk begins recounting an old story, explaining that after the appearance of the portals, China was divided into 6 nations, and that this individual acted as if he were the ruler of one of them. He also mentions that this person had awakened an ability similar to a virus that infected zombies, granting him the power to control anyone who became infected. This ability allowed him to engage in battle against Qin Xiao, the strongest person in China at the time. However, he was utterly defeated by Qin Xiao. That battle proved that individuals with extremely high rankings possessed immunity to poisons and viruses. Lee Hyuk then comments that when he saw the old woman, all of these details came rushing back to him. He then asks Jian if this elderly woman is the boss. However, he is completely stunned when the viewers respond that she is his wife. Jian then explains that, according to what she knows, if they had failed to save Chloe within the allotted time, she would have aged rapidly due to the effects of the viral infection, eventually ending up in this state. Lee Hyuk asks if they had been playing too slowly. Jian replies that, on the contrary, they had been clearing the stages at an exceptionally fast pace. She then turns to the viewers, asking if anyone knows the reason behind this outcome. One of the viewers responds with an answer that makes them all look completely foolish, explaining that they had simply forgotten to retrieve the serum and spray it inside the house. When they entered through the secret passage, they should have used the serum, as it was designed to slow down the infection process. However, these foolish brothers had ignored it in favor of the massive reward offered by the Black Orc organization. Lee Hyuk then replies, saying that if that's the case, then he is responsible for her transformation. The viewers confirm his statement, telling him that yes, he was the one who caused her demise. He then remarks that there is no point in regretting it now. The only thing left to do is eliminate her, as she is the gatekeeper standing in their way before the final boss. Jian then asks the viewers if they would be okay with her revealing the full details of the story. Since they have no objections, she begins narrating the events. She explains that Chloe was the root of the problem from the very beginning. She was a researcher specializing in biological weapons for a private military organization, and was directly involved in creating the mutation that led to this entire catastrophe. Her goal, along with her organization, was to develop advanced biological weapons. However, she attempted to smuggle the mutation out of the lab in order to sell it to a rival organization. She was caught, and as a result, she ended up hiding inside this haunted house, fleeing from her own organization. During her escape, she became infected. Jian then summarizes the situation, stating that Chloe was responsible for inventing the virus, spreading it, and causing all the chaos. Lee Hyuk responds with excitement, saying that if they manage to eliminate her, it means they will have completed the game. Jian confirms that he is absolutely right. Lee Hyuk then grips his axes and asks Jian to open the bars so he can take on the zombies head-on. Jian presses the button. The iron gate begins to open, and the excitement among the viewers intensifies as they eagerly anticipate the final boss battle. The moment the gate fully opens, hordes of zombies surge toward Lee Hyuk. He comments that this is the second time he has faced enhanced zombies. As he fights, he adds that if these creatures alone are this powerful, then battling their leader should be relatively easy. However, the real problem is that the number of zombies this time is twice as large as the last time he faced them. The viewers begin to speculate, saying that no matter how strong Lee Hyuk is, he will never be able to defeat this boss. However, Lee Hyuk remains unfazed by their remarks, and continues his battle against the zombies, relentlessly taking them down one by one without pausing to rest. Lee Hyuk then started thinking that the main objective might be to defeat the boss, rather than eliminating all the zombies. He kicked one of them aside, then bypassed the rest without killing them to confirm whether his assumption was correct. Eventually, he reached Chloe, and was about to attack her. But as soon as he got close, her expression changed, and she let out an extremely loud scream. The entire house was destroyed as a result. She then emerged from the rubble, the only one still standing. The viewers felt disheartened for Lee Hyuk, believing that he had been so close to achieving his goal. However, they soon noticed movement beneath a pile of zombie corpses. Suddenly, a hand emerged from between the bodies. Moments later, Lee Hyuk and Jian crawled out completely unscathed. The viewers were stunned, as they had never expected Lee Hyuk to withstand such a powerful attack, using nothing but the enhanced zombies around him in such a short time. Lee Hyuk then explained that Chloe's attack actually had an upside. It had wiped out all the zombies, leaving only Chloe herself. He added that now he fully understood the nature of her troublesome attacks, making it much easier for him to defeat her. However, before he could act, Chloe suddenly began transforming into her second form. Alongside her, the snakes that were supposed to be protecting her before he encountered her also appeared. Not just one, but 3. This caused Jian to panic. exclaiming that the game was becoming completely illogical. The boss was only supposed to have one guardian monster, yet now there were 3 in addition to Chloe. The viewers sympathized with the situation but acknowledged that the game had its own rules. After all, it was unreasonable to expect a single person to defeat all these creatures without using firearms, relying solely on his broken fists. The whole thing seemed completely unrealistic. Jean then snapped at them in frustration, insisting that taking down all these monsters at once was impossible. She pointed out that Chloe's guardians were known for their incredible strength. Not only that, but they also turned transparent when attacking, making them even harder to deal with. Some viewers suggested that they could simply use a gun or another weapon to target the snakes, but both Lee Hyuk and Jian dismissed the idea due to their contract with the Black Orc organization, which they were obligated to follow. However, one viewer pointed out that the contract only prohibited Lee Hyuk from using firearms, meaning that Jian could still shoot at the snakes. This realization made both of them feel foolish for not thinking of it sooner. Jian then grabbed a machine gun and admitted that she had been letting Lee Hyuk do all the work so far, but now she would at least disable the snakes for a while. However, before she could act, Lee Hyuk swiftly moved toward her and snatched the gun from her hands. He then, visibly irritated, told her to forget about it entirely, and not to entertain unnecessary thoughts. Jian was taken aback and asked why, insisting that she only wanted to help. He responded, still frustrated, saying that doing nothing would actually be the greatest help she could provide. At that moment, the viewers recalled what Jian had done at the beginning of the game, when she had accidentally hit Lee Hyuk on the head with a gun, and they burst into laughter. Jian, however, felt embarrassed and insisted that she hadn't meant to do that. Lee Hyuk then looked at her and realized that she was genuinely trying to help, and that in the end, they were all playing this game for fun. He thought to himself that Jian should also be enjoying herself. Smiling at her, he asked if she still had the grenades they had collected earlier. She confirmed that she did. Lee Hyuk then lifted a zombie corpse and instructed her to throw the grenade in front of them when he gave the signal. The viewers were puzzled and commented that she might throw the grenade without pulling the pin. Jean scolded them for their sarcasm, asserting that she knew perfectly well how to use grenades. Lee Hyuk then laughed and added that his sister Jian was definitely not that dumb. Lee Hyuk instructs Jian to prepare, as they are about to begin. He then dashes forward at an incredible speed, distancing himself from her. At the same time, the snakes activate their stealth ability to launch an attack on Lee Hyuk. As soon as they get close enough, he signals Jian to throw the grenade. She immediately tosses it the moment she receives his signal. However, it hits Lee Hyuk directly on the head. The explosion follows, hitting the snakes as well and disrupting their stealth ability. Jian panics and apologizes to Lee Hyuk, insisting that her hand slipped while throwing the grenade. He responds by saying that he had anticipated she would do that, which is why he used a zombie corpse as a shield to protect himself. He then dashes toward the snakes before they can turn invisible again. With precise aim, he lands a direct hit on one of the snake's eyes. The creature recoils in pain. However, he soon senses the second snake approaching from behind. He quickly adjusts his position mid-air. Then, he swings his axe at the snake, but its skin is incredibly tough. To his surprise, the axe does not penetrate its scales. Suddenly, he senses another snake hiding, preparing to ambush him. At the last moment, he manages to block the attack. However, the sheer force of the impact sends him flying backward. Smirking in defiance, he remarks that things are finally starting to get more challenging. He wipes the blood off his face, acknowledging that the situation has become more complicated, yet at the same time, more thrilling than he had expected. He then charges forward again at high speed, noting that the snake with the injured eye can no longer use its stealth ability, while the other two still can. As he rushes toward them, he recalls how, during the alien invasion, there were creatures with the ability to turn transparent as well. However, compared to those beings, these snakes were insignificant. He then attempts to summon the same mindset he had when fighting those extraterrestrial monsters. As he rapidly closes the distance between himself, the snakes, and Chloe, he sees only one of them visibly before him, while the other two remain hidden, ready to strike. Sensing their presence, he realizes that two are in front of him, while one lurks behind. With expert precision, he evades their attacks. He then leaps onto the back of the snake whose eye he had injured earlier. Preparing to strike again, the viewers warn him that he had attempted this before, and failed. In response, he declares that if the game is truly realistic, his plan will succeed this time. He then lands a precise strike on the exposed gaps between the snake's scales. Targeting this weak spot allows him to kill it instantly. Triumphantly, he announces that he can now take down these snakes with a single hit. However, just as the snake perishes, Chloe lunges at him with incredible speed. He narrowly dodges her attack, but immediately notices another snake behind him once again. Reacting swiftly, he maneuvers around it and strikes its head. Then, he embeds both axes deep into the snake's mouth. With all his strength, he pulls them apart. The snake staggers backward, inadvertently stepping into the path of Chloe's attacks. At that moment, he notices the final snake descending from above, preparing to strike. He deftly avoids its attack, causing it to accidentally bite the other snake instead. Seizing the opportunity, he leaps over them, pointing out that the snakes have only two weak points, inside their mouths and the reverse side of their scales. Without hesitation, he launches an all-out assault on the remaining snakes. With masterful precision, he eliminates them both at once. Now, the only one left standing before him is Chloe, the final boss. Lee Hyuk moves at lightning speed once again, confidently declaring that this will be the last battle of the game. He fully intends to enjoy it to the fullest.